It's something I've been asked about repeatedly over the years. What do I think about the biphobia in the original Sex and the City? Well, for those of you that haven't read my comments before, I think that it did untold damage to bisexual men in particular. It didn't do great for bisexual women, but for bisexual men in particular, I think to have a show that became an almost zeitgeist for women, that for many generations now of women have kind of looked to that as sort of a liberated way to be, a way that sort of glamorized living in the city and fashion and relationships. The fact that these women broke down so many barriers and were saying, no, we don't need to be defined by men and we don't need to be defined by this. And we are, these strong, independent women. Having that be, we draw the line though at bisexual men was obviously not great for bisexual men like myself. That they couldn't have done that more justice. That, there are quotes in there like it's just a layover on the way to Gay Town. The lead character saying, I'm not even sure bisexuality just exists. People calling it greedy double dipping. This was really what was sort of put at bisexual men, and what a lot of women that looked to these women as their sort of gurus or guides over the years, that was really what they looked to and said, oh, okay, that's it. And we see the repercussions of that, to be honest. We see it in a lot of statistics that say, straight women, the majority of them do not want to date bisexual men. And it's not even just bisexual men that they don't want to date. It's men that might identify as straight but have previously had sex with a man. Like they just see that as something they don't want to engage with. And now we have to be a little bit careful here because you can't force anyone to find you attractive. That's really not good. There are words for that. Words that I won't say here because then you'll never see this video because it will be hidden away. But we have to be really careful with saying that, well, you've got to find these people attractive. How I've always personally draw the line is, why don't you find these people attractive? So with bisexual men, if someone were to say to me, oh, you know what, I just like, it just doesn't turn me on, the idea of a bisexual man. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's just, I'm not feeling it. That to me is actually fine. Like, you're just not feeling it. If it's, oh, I wouldn't date a bisexual man because he's obviously secretly gay, because he's obviously going to cheat on me, because he's obviously riddled with STIs, that is discrimination. And, that's no different than say I wouldn't date someone of this ethnicity or this religion because they're obviously going to be like this. Like, so that is for me where I draw the line. And I think that what unfortunately happened is a lot of women that turned to this show just kind of took that as subconscious. Oh yeah, bisexual men. Oh, and I know that some people might say, "Oh, come on, you can't blame everything on Sex and the City," but I blame a large portion of it, to be honest. It was a massive show, and it's not just the numbers of people that watched it when it was first airing. Like, it's all the people that have watched it since that really have felt that bisexual men are the line in the sand you don't cross, which is just such an odd thing to have. And so I've been asked now with the spin-off show that has just now ended after 3 seasons, and just like that, what did you think of that? I think the first thing to say is that they did not actually address the bisexuality issue. And I think that actually what has done and just like that is that they tried to go so, as they say, woke in the first season, and people found it really inauthentic. Like, how can you tell me that this woman and this group of friends that just felt like bisexuality and a bisexual man was just too far and just beyond the pale of comparison, now they've gotten their head around non-binary people, and they have non-binary friends now, and they've gotten their head around all of these different sexualities and all of these different gender identities. I don't understand how you got from, we don't understand what bisexuality is, to where they started off in this show. I actually would have felt that a more authentic way for this show to have worked, and something I would have liked to have seen, was actually if the title character, Carrie Bradshaw, had actually been cancelled. Like, that had been the premise for what started the show off, is that actually she gets challenged on what she said in those columns in the 90s, that someone rediscovers them and says, did you really call bisexual men this? Did you really write a column about a man that was secretly filming himself having sex with models and you didn't report it to the police? Like, all of these things that really haven't aged well, that those are sort of put back on her. And then she goes on a rediscovery of, well, I did write this in the 90s. How have things changed? What is it like now? Do I still feel this way? And actually confront some of these issues, not just bisexual men. I'm not that selfish, all of those issues could have been readdressed in a really authentic way that really talked about, oh, the times have changed and attitudes have changed. And actually we were really a frontier in the 90s. but now are we the old duddies? And actually, do we need to think about how the world's changing? I feel like that would actually be an interesting show. And it's not woke or about too much diversity. It's just about how life has changed and how a 50-year-old actually integrates with some of the things that they thought in their 30s. We're all changing, we're all evolving. And I just think that that would have been a more authentic thing to have done than to have. What they basically did was inauthentically ram a load of diversity into that first season, which came off as woke, as virtue signaling. And they never actually addressed anything about bisexuality. They even had one of the title characters, Cynthia Nixon's Miranda Hobbs, actually comes out as queer and dates someone that's non-binary. And then there's almost this pressure to sort of pick a label and to identify. And even though she's been with a man for all those years, she comes out as lesbian, which, is fine. But I feel like, would it not have been more interesting to have actually had her identify as bisexual and actually say, well, now one of our title characters is bisexual. We use the label because, as we know in the original, one of the other title characters, Samantha Jones, dated a woman and was called lesbian and said she'd gone for all the men. That was what was put at her rather than her just identifying as bi. So this show didn't age well in the 90s. And I think that it's clear that the new show didn't do any better, really, when it came to diversity. I don't know how that's even possible. I don't know how they didn't even think of, and look, it's about telling interesting stories. I think there does have to be a balance. I'm not one of those people that thinks, well, a TV show is there to sort of change hearts and minds and to do my campaigning for me, and it should be there to make the world accepting of bisexual people. It's not, but at the same time, you've got to balance that with when they did it so poorly in the 90s, that actually had a real impact on people like me. So there is this balance of, well, I'm not saying you're there to campaign and to change hearts and minds for the better for me. But at the same time, if you mess it up, it does reflect on me. So there is that balance. Of course, it has to be telling entertaining stories. I think that the thing about Sex and the City was it was a real cultural phenomenon. And it was really about navigating current things and things that were happening in the modern world in the 90s, being able to have these three friends or four friends in the original that maybe didn't see eye to eye and interpreted things in different ways. It was really odd that they didn't have someone that maybe struggled with gender identity and pronouns. I think that would have actually been an interesting thing to have seen one of them go through. And then we get to see the growth of that and actually bring people along. The fact that they were sort of already at the diversity finish line and, oh, well, we're cool with everything. We understand everything. We've done the work. Didn't really gel. It was like, there's nothing we can learn from that. We kind of want to see you go on the journey. So unfortunately, Sex and the City did a lot of damage, and just like that, didn't really do anything to help bisexual men. I don't even think bisexual men were mentioned once, but I don't think that anyone that had an issue with bisexual men because of the original has changed their mind based on anything and unjust like that. So they should have called me. I could have written a really great season 1 that wasn't just bisexuality focused, but you could actually have done so much where you have a legacy show that you can then go back on and pull from what they were saying in the original show and challenge it with where the world is now. Could have been really interesting. And also, as an aside, I wouldn't have killed off Big. I'd have made him go to prison for embezzling money and have her lose all of her money because I think that the characters are far too rich. But that's got nothing to do with this. Let me know what you think about Sex and the City and how they handled bisexuality in the comments.